Hi, I just want to hope you guys are doing great right now in this pandemic and things are opening up. But I just want to give you a word of encouragement. This is actually something I read recently. This is for a family devotion, and I thought it's actually very encouraging for me, and I hope it will be the same for you as well. This is taken from Hebrews 11, verse 8. Let me just share a little bit. Here it says, by faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was to receive as an inheritance. And he went out, not knowing where he was going. By faith, he went to live in the land of promise, as in a foreign land, living in tents with Isaac and Jacob, heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city that has foundations, whose designer and builder is God. By faith, Sarah herself received power to conceive, even when she was past the age, since she considered him faithful who had promised. Therefore, from one man, and him as good as dead, were born descendants as many as the stars of heaven, and as many as the innumerable grains of sand by the seashore. Here's a great promise, a great thing about faith. Oftentimes when God calls us to do something, he doesn't tell us exactly where he wants us to go, but he tells us to go. It's kind of like Abraham here. He was called, and the Bible here says God called him, he went, and he did not know where he was going. He had absolutely no idea where he was going, but he obeyed God. And also it says that he God was promising to give him it as an inheritance. But by the time he got to the promised land, he was actually living in tents with his son Isaac and grandson Jacob. And this seems almost silly. And I think in human sense, Abraham could have gone, Lord, where is the promise? But you see, God actually did promise to give him land. And that's why this whole section is called by faith. The only piece of land, promised land, that Abraham owned when he died was actually the burial ground for his wife Sarah. And this almost seems hard to believe. Here he was promised this piece of land. Yet by the time he died, he only owned this burial ground. And he was living on the land of promise as though he was a foreigner. He lived in tents. And this really made me think about, oftentimes, this is the call of faith that God has for our lives. We're called to trust him. And God doesn't always give us everything that he promised to us in this life. There's no easy, success theology. Sometimes it is just by faith that we trust God. And I really love the conclusion of Hebrews here. Here is verse 13 says, these all died in faith, not having received the things promised, but having seen them and greeted them from afar, and having acknowledged that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. For people who speak thus make it clear that they were seeking a foundation. Verse 16, but as it is, they desire a better country, that is the heavenly one. Therefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared for them a city. And here it says, all these people, they died without, in a sense, receiving that promise. And so, sometimes God may call you to a mission or task, and you faithfully serve him. And you may not see the result in this life. But you know what? God promised to never let his work return empty handed. So you can trust him and by faith do what he has called you to do. And I want to ask you a question. What is something that God has called you to do? It needs to be something, of course, that's in the Bible. Maybe it's to witness to your neighbor, do good deeds to your neighbor, share the gospel. Maybe it's loving your enemies. Or take a stand for Christ in the public square. Whatever he calls you to do, he will give you strength. And maybe you don't see the success you want, but he has promised that your work in him, it will not be in vain. So I hope this is some encouragement for you.